Good morning, Mike and Arlen, our Philippine journey. Thanks for dropping in. As usual, please consider subscribing and also consider hitting that thumbs up. We would really appreciate it. What are the 10 most important factors in a long term relationship? And I think that these factors apply everywhere, not just to expats and not just in the Philippines. Let's talk about it.
I never got it, why'd you have to go? I guess this world's too slow for you. I think there's beauty in the gray, the cold, but you just want the gold. And there's no way I can beat it, cause I got no chance, no chance when it comes to her. She got the glitter and the fame, and I just wasn't enough.
So, Arlen and I have been in a relationship for 10 years. 10 years of a great relationship, to be honest with you. With that being said, we've been married for 8. And I based all of this, and I wooed, or whatever you want to call it, Arlen, based on some simple cornerstones. Now, many of you that are looking at this are going to say, well, I made mistakes in my past. Indeed. Haven't we all? Finally, I would sit there and I would say, not only that, it's time to maybe make a change in your life. Now, there are exceptions to all rules. One of those exceptions is you. All right? If you're a man whore, this just doesn't apply to you. But let's get going with it and let's figure it out. And we'll tell you what we've come up with. So, what do we look at here? How do we figure this out? Well, honestly, the first thing is communication. And I don't just mean speaking their language. I mean, you need to be able to communicate. You need to be able to sit down, have rational discussions without arguing. You need to be able to listen as well as speak. Those are kind of important. Common interests. How are you going to go through life if you don't have common interests? If you like to go hiking and she doesn't, or she likes to go to the beach and you don't, that could be a problem. Honesty. Honesty is really one of those things that you have got to put forward. Now, being honest doesn't mean having to bear open every flaw that you've ever had. But from the day you meet that person onward, you have got to be completely honest with them. And completely honest doesn't mean saying everything. It means, you know what, honey? It's part of my life I really don't want to talk about. Okay? You don't have to do that. Trust. Trust is so important. If you can't trust your partner, you've got a problem. That's just all there is to it. I don't care what anybody says. Now, that doesn't mean you shouldn't safeguard your assets. That doesn't mean you shouldn't be cautious. But what it does mean, especially for those of you that are in these long distance relationships, you've got these periods of time where you're separated, and are you going to wonder and make her live by her phone nonstop just because you wake up and you decide to give her a text and say, where are you? What are you doing? You've got to trust that person. If you can't trust the person you are with, because they can tell you where they are and you can just say, I don't believe you, you're a liar. You've got to have some trust in humanity. No way around it. Boundaries and rules. Well, that goes along with trust. You've got to have these boundaries and these rules. These things are important. All right? Not only boundaries and rules for her, but boundaries and rules for you. That's a necessary evil. Let's take a look at these last 5 here. You need to set a budget and stick with it. A budget that both of you can live within. A budget that makes sense. And if you can't live your life happily within that budget, you're not going to be able to live it with anybody unless they can live the life you set within that budget. So you've got to, see where you're at. Some of these gold diggers, there's the first red flag for sure. Otherwise, there are a lot of good women. All right? You have got to, you know what? Let me move this just a hair here. There we go. You've got to learn to work as a team. That's what it is about, after all, is being a team. You and her are a team, and you have to work together that way. You have to help get from point A to point B, and you have to need help to get from point A to Personal goals. Personal goals are really important, not just for you, but for her. You're part of the personal growth of each other. Both of you have to deal with that. This is really important, and a lot of guys seem to overlook this, or they don't seem to think it's as important. But you've got to face the fear and the reality of her future, because she faces that every day, especially with all of the age gap relationship issues. You know what? Every day, does she need to worry about how she's going to take care of herself when you're gone? What about her future? What have you done for that? Are you aware of making and keeping her content, knowing the goals you've set for her future, and knowing if there's some support in her future? And finally, all right, separate her family from your family. You've heard this a million times, I'm sure. You marry a Filipina, you marry their family. Well, you do. But that doesn't mean you married the full responsibility for them. You need to be upfront. When you get serious, that is one of the most serious discussions you will have or need to have with your future relationship. And that is, you know what, honey? I love you. I'll really care for you. But your family is not somebody that I can support. We can help. We can do a little here and there. Or we can do nothing. It doesn't, it takes out of our budget. But the bottom line is you've got to set that ground rule, and you've got to get her to agree to it, because it impacts your family, you and her. Look, all of these things, there are so many different aspects to a relationship. And this doesn't cover all of them. And so if you would, in the comments, if you've got others you'd like to add to that list, speak up. Tell us your thoughts. Finally, more than anything, let us know of the parts you disagree with, because that's what YouTube's about. It's open commentary. It should be about sharing ideas and ideologies. We hope you found this interesting. Otherwise, we really hope you have a great day. Thanks.